Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Green Arrow FPL podcast and Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to double game week 35 in the midst of an absolutely mental double game week 34, which still isn't over yet. There'll be more drama this evening, no doubt. The sound of game week 35 wildcards being activated to chime in everywhere, including my two esteemed colleagues here this evening. My name is Fergi, and I'm here with the brilliant Rich Clarke as usual. Rich, how are you? And what colour was your arrow so far in double game week 34?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit mentally fragile, Fergie, for someone that
Generally,
that
or just this game week?
Just go. Yeah, I think my mental fragility has been tested this week beyond all other weeks. So didn't have a free hit. Somehow we've just changed my arrow from red to green because somehow miraculously I've got the smallest of green arrows with a very mediocre 88 points on the board so far. Can't believe it's a green at my level. I know Ben scored more than me and he's got a big red for his level, but it's not gone well. Didn't start going well when 8 Nori was my disastrous transfer for last week. We got a league he was going to be put on the bench and he duly was, but that forced me to make a defensive transfer, and then I went and brought in Virgil van Dijk rather than the second Arsenal defender that I so badly needed.
Rather than Ben White.
Rather than Ben White or Saliba. I'd have settled for Saliba, to be honest. It was just idiotic thing to go and get Virgil given Liverpool's form and stuff. But I just thought he had the upside to do something attacking wise, and I made that decision late. So that was silly. But had Mateta. We had him a couple of weeks ago, so he was a good tip, and had got Eze in rather than Luis Diaz, so it could have got even worse for me. But I am still not over. I've got Phil Foden, who I hope doesn't show up tonight. We'll probably get a leak that he starts during the programme. If he doesn't show up, then I will jam 12 points from Harry Maguire off my third bench position, which I think I'll be fairly unique in doing. So I really could do with him not showing up at all. And that would just get me to the 100, which I would rip your arm off for, mate, if I could get to 100.
But you are active in wildcards, so you've got the opportunity now to change your fortunes.
I am, and I'm very keen to be on with Ben and see what he's doing because I know you'll have put a lot of thought into it, Ben. So looking forward to that.
Speaking of wildcards, our special guest today, none other than FPL legend Ben Crellin, chasing down his best ever finish. Ben, how are you, and what colour was your arrow in double game week 34?
I'm doing well. I'm not really sure what colour my arrow is at the minute. Well, I know it's red, but I've got Reguilon coming off the bench guaranteed. I don't know how much that's going to bump me up. I've dropped, without Reguilon's points, I've dropped from 934 to 1938 when I was 938. That's with a score of 95. So it's a big drop, even though I've got quite a decent score. So Reguilon 7 points coming on for Haaland. That'll be a bit of a bump. And then I've got Foden as well to come. So maybe if Foden gets a goal tonight, I might have a chance of just about being in the top 1K. But yeah, I think I've had a better week than most non-free hitters. Yeah. But I've had a much worse week than expected versus the free hitters. So I don't know, there's some crumbs of comfort there, but yeah.
The free hitters.
There are some amazing scores out there. I've seen a 216 out there. I've seen, someone's gone from something like 376k to 16k with a 216 score. 216. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. Captain Mateta. I mean, well done,
Adam.
Such a wild game week. One of the swingiest game weeks you can remember.
Brutal.
I've not been looking too far at all the scores and just been focusing on my own battles and trying to reduce the emotional, how emotional I'm getting. But it's just hoping Foden can do something tonight, and if not, I won't be too far off the top 1K, and hopefully, loads of people have overtaken me, but they'll all be on free hits.
Yeah.
So I've got the wild card, and maybe
I'll smash it with a wild card, mate. I'm sure you'll be fine. Still win the whole thing, I think.
Adam Hopcroft scored 127, so he's had a really good week on free hit. One of our developers, Joe, who works at Fantasy Football Hub, got 148. That's incredible. Everywhere, just littered with points all over their team. Phil Wright in the chat says a disappointing 119 on free hit. Oh, I feel for you, Phil. Honestly, my eyes are welling up as I'm sitting on my 78 points. But we got a lot of chat. There's so many interesting stories. We spoke last week, Rich, didn't we, about the variation in teams and the score ranges are just ridiculous. I've seen scores as low as like 40 odd, and some, as you say, as high as 200, and everything in between. There doesn't seem to be a kind of average, does there? Anywhere, every score you see is wildly different from the next one. So the pool of players for one, really kind of eligible candidates, is massive. But also the swings, as you said, like Virgil against Ben White, a swing of 20 plus points from one play. Eze versus Diaz, for example, and Mateta versus Solanke. They're just a lot of the 50-50s. If you hit the right one, oh my goodness me!
Yeah, and it was the week to take a punt on the captaincy as well, wasn't it? Retrospectively,
and we all went with Salah.
Yeah.
And the other big thing is the Arsenal players. Like, you had the template Arsenal players that everyone was carrying, like Saliba, Gabriel, Saka. And it just so happened that there were some other good options this week. And if you punted on them on free hit, you got Odegaard, Havertz, Ben White with big alternatives. They just smashed it, didn't they? So.
Even the Everton players, Ben Pickford, 20 points, Michaelenko, 18 points, something like that. I mean, it's incredible. I may not be quite right with those, but there's some massive scores, even from these minor players that just being brought in for 1 week. So, yeah, fantastic for those. Enjoy that feeling if you
absolutely. Do. It doesn't happen very often. I'm not even talking once a season. It's like once every 4 or 5 seasons we see this kind of, this score like 160, 170 points. Absolutely crazy. We haven't seen it for a long time, have we? So well done everyone who was free hit and smashed it. You've landed the right side. You picked the right players. Hope you all go on and have a fantastic season. Just touch on my week before we move on. We start talking about wildcards. I scored 78, a poor week. I had Mateta, had Gabriel, Garnacho 5, Saka, Solanke, Senesi. I mean, looked all right. Getting 8 Norris, 2 points off the bench for Haaland. And I've got Foden to play this evening, so I'm hoping Foden can. If Foden gets a bit of a haul, like a 12, 14 pointer tonight, it may help dig me out and kind of in my rank. But I've got a bit of a violin moment for my team. You bear in mind that I haven't got my wild card. I'm going to switch the violin on. We've got a few violin moments, unsurprisingly. But yeah, so normally at about 10:30, 10, half 10 on a Saturday morning, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty, on the ball in terms of, looking at Twitter, looking at the teams, know what transfer I'm doing, wherever else. I just make sure I've got all the final news, and then I make my transfer at 10:45. Say, I had an incredibly busy weekend, and the deadline this weekend it was 1:30, I think it was. And I go out, I do family things and this, that, and the other. So I haven't got my wild card. I had 2 transfers, and would you believe I accidentally burned my transfer because I didn't realise I didn't make my change, and I didn't realise. Until I checked my live rank on like Sunday that I hadn't made a change. I was planning a.
Well, actually tried. You thought you'd made it.
No, I just hadn't made it because I realised the deadline was like a couple of hours later. I thought, I'll do it a bit later because I was waylaid, distracted, doing everyday stuff. I clean forgot. So I was either going to do Kaminsky to like Vicario or Petrovic or something, ahead of this week, or maybe 8 Norrie to like a double game week defender. So I've actually burnt a transfer with no wild card, which is pretty impressive. You've got a achievement unlocked there, but we've got a few more violin moments. Will, CEO of Fantasy Football Hub, a few weeks ago when we all got Mateta in, Rich, if you remember, Will was 0.1 short of getting Mateta, so instead he opted for Cameron Archer, who's coming off this bench this week, I think for like 1 point, and he didn't get Mateta. So Will has been having an amazing season. Was 0.1 short of a 29 pointer, which is unbelievable. Russell in the chat earlier on, violin moment. He was going to take out Estupinan, Son, Foden, and Muniz to White, Eze, Elise, and Mateta for a -8. But he was setting up his mate's 50th birthday was charging the phone, but the power went off on his phone, so he couldn't make the changes, and he dropped from 40k to 180k. What's that? Why?
Oh my!
That's
God.
about like
wow.
50
400% increase.
Absolutely ridiculous. Couple of other ones we've had, other interesting ones. Steve Dobson on Twitter says, "Hi mate, with Hal not playing tonight, my bench boost this week, which I played trying to be clever and amazing, has got me the following: Dubravka 2, Palmer 0, Gusto 0, Haaland 0. So he says, I can hear a violin. He has bench boosted. Steve has bench boosted for 2 points. But this one is my favourite one. I say a violin moment. This is from Abraham. He's a Fantasy Football Hub member. It's on a free hit. Scored 104 points, which, you know, is reasonable, more than reasonable on a free hit. But he got a claim. He potentially got a claim to fame for the record number of benched points, which I've never seen this before. So either of you guys, what's the highest amount of bench points that you guys have seen in one week?
Double game week.
Well,
game week. Well,
any week.
Somewhere approaching 50 to 60, maybe.
Okay.
You know, possibly.
How about yourself, Ben? What's highest you've ever seen benched?
I can't think. I'm just looking at my own history. I benched 28 points in game week 24.
Okay.
But
yeah, I benched 32 points before.
Abraham benched Pickford for 18 points. He benched Senesi for 6, Tarkowski for 13, and Mateta for 29 for a combined bench total of 66 points. Which is absolutely... He did score 104. He's having a half decent season, but yeah, absolutely crazy stuff. But yeah, those are your violin moments for this week, and this absolutely, when you think FPL just can't get any swingier, any more brutal, any kind of anything, and it just says hold my beer, doesn't it? And
hold my beer. I'm gonna absolutely smash you up. Yeah,
incredible.
Anyway,
let's move on. You two guys are on Wildcard. There's 4 game weeks to go. Ben, we've just got one of your kind of images looking at the final 4 weeks. I suppose, you know, Rich and I obviously speak every week about the run-in and our thoughts. I suppose just interested in your thoughts in general, you know, on how to navigate the last 4 weeks for those with certain chips, for those without chips. What's in Ben's head about the final few weeks?
I think everyone's focusing on Chelsea and Tottenham players this week because they've got the most fixtures out of everybody, and they've got the double game week this week. There's a bit of a question mark about Arsenal players, that if you're on Wildcard, like, do you include one Arsenal defender, because they've got some pretty good single game week fixtures in 36 and 38, especially Newcastle. Is Anthony Gordon better than the Spurs midfielder? That's a bit of a question mark because they've got Sheffield United at home, and their home record has been so good compared to away. If you look at Anthony Gordon's record at home and away, it's such a big chasm, and he's got the easiest home fixture this week, and then he's got a pretty good fixture in 36, and then the double game week in 37. So there's like questions about that, but I'd say Chelsea, Tottenham, and then Newcastle are the big priorities this week.
Yeah, agree. Richard, anything to kind of add? Any observations? You know, has anything changed in the last week in terms of the plays you're looking at, or strategy, or?
Well, a little bit. I mean, obviously we haven't gone into specific games during the Wild double game week 34, but just Chelsea's performance against Arsenal. I didn't actually watch the game live. I've obviously seen the highlights since and taken it all in, but we do seem to be in a bit of a dichotomy over bringing in hopeless players, you know, just because they've got an extra couple of fixtures. You know, a lot of, you know, twice as much hopelessness probably adds up to something pretty hopeless, doesn't it? It just is. And we're now all completely convinced that double game weeks are the way to go after one of the most high scoring ones ever. It's probably the only high scoring double game week of the season, really. The rest of them have been very disappointing. So actually, this is a good debate with Ben, because I'm questioning whether or not it is worth going all in on the doubles. I mean, I'm obviously chasing, you're chasing as well. You know, got a wild card left. You literally just throw it all in on 15 doublers for game week 37 and just say, I'm just going to do this completely thoughtless wild card and just get double game week players and not have any players that are not doubling? Or do I keep Salah? Do I keep Watkins? Do I keep Saka? Do I keep these players who are consistently performing from week to week and have a mix of those in the wild card? So, for instance, one thing I am thinking about is maybe if Haaland is a doubt for the weekend, is going without him on wildcard, and bringing him back for game at 37. So rather than having him and benching him and being efficient with that transfer, actually just playing the upside of, say, a Watkins at home to Chelsea, something like that, and doing that. But as we've seen with wildcards, Fergie, as soon as you try and get clever with them, you get your just desserts, don't you?
Saka and Watkins are going to bang this weekend, guaranteed. Just as everyone starts to take them out, and we're filling them with like Madueke and Kulusevskis.
Yeah, just to make up the numbers. Yeah, exactly. And that just doesn't feel very good. I mean, Nicholas Jackson was getting ratings of 3 out of 10 on player raters, in that game, and I've seen him on 80% of wildcards that I've looked at this week, maybe 90%. Just because he's got 5 games in 3 weeks. But he might get dropped. I mean, Poch might just completely shake the side up this weekend because he was really angry with them.
I'd say able to ask you first, Ben, before we dive into specific players and strategies and stuff. The first sort of talking point, as Rich alluded to, is around players like Salah, Haaland, Watkins, Saka potentially, players of that ilk who have performed well. You could say performed well. Salah's kind of out of favour at the moment, but the other lot, do you go with them or not? I know Haaland's is obviously injury risk, but are you thinking about keeping the staples of your team, as we kind of call them, in and going around them, or not?
Well, Arsenal's defense is so good that if I'm keeping one single game week player in my wildcard team, it'll be an Arsenal defender.
Okay.
Think if Haaland is out, if he's like confirmed out for this week and maybe a doubt for the next week, then I'll have money to use. And would I go with Saka or Salah? They'd be the questions. Now, Saka's kind of gone a bit off the boil recently. Yeah. He's got, in Arsenal's last 7 goals, he's got 1 assist and no goals. Salah was very frustrating last night, but he could turn it on. Like maybe Liverpool were under pressure, and then just being out of the title race now, they might play with freedom. You never know what will happen. So I might reluctantly go back to Salah if Haaland is ruled out. I think with Chelsea, we shouldn't get too wrapped up with what happened this week, because like the week before they won 6-0 with Parma. They're a young team who swing a lot and go from one extreme to the other. And with Parma back in the team, they could easily do well. So I'm happy owning Jackson over Watkins. Watkins has Liverpool in the double game week. He just has a single game week fixture against Liverpool. Mm-hmm. So if you're bench boosting, you want a better striker than Watkins for that fixture.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I was only really thinking of having Watkins for a couple of weeks because of that jeopardy over Haaland, and then just using or planning a transfer to actually upgrade him to Haaland for the double game week, so he'd be like the placeholder. And I think that is a gamble because he's just got that Chelsea fixture at home, and so it's just a thought. But
I think with planning transfers, you want to make sure you've got 15 healthy, like optimal players for your bench boost. So it's quite important to save transfers more than normal. I think I'm looking at maybe having Maddison, and then if I do have a transfer to use in game week 37 and nothing else to do, I could do Maddison to Richarlison, because Richarlison might be back by then. Could be a better option. And then having 2 transfers for 38, that would be quite useful. So yeah, just starting with a team now on wildcard that I'd be happy to bench boost in 37, and then making the Maddison to Richarlison upgrade if I've got the flexibility in 37.
Mm-hmm. You've got some players here, Rich, some the players you're kind of looking at, and I suppose I want to ask about in terms of who you're going with on wildcard. Players like Palmer, we know everyone's going to have, but aside from that, you've got some other players you want to talk about.
Yeah, okay. So I think Salah, a couple of weeks ago when he was going mad against Brighton and having 12 shots on goal or whatever in one game, and not owning him then just seemed like a huge mistake. So then he was brought back in by many. But since then he's put in a couple of really disappointing performances and just doesn't really look completely on it, does he? So coupling that with the upsurge in form of Bruno Fernandes, who got 2 goals and assists last night, despite United once again nearly blowing it against Sheffield United, he is looks like he's back to his best. So United are scoring goals, and he's got Burnley, I think, at home this week, is it?
Yeah.
So he's got a great fixture this week. Taking him out now for Salah versus keeping Salah for that game week 26 fixture where you could theoretically captain him. That was looking like a hard decision a couple of days ago, but now I think it's quite an easy decision to make tonight, and that Bruno just walks into the template wildcard midfield for me. The other person you've got right at the front here is Anthony Gordon. I mean, Ben's already talked about him. Again, I went through. I've owned Gordon probably for most of the season, but when I didn't own him just after the last international break, he absolutely destroyed the other team at St James's Park. Got about 17 points or something, and so he's definitely coming in for me. But I think he's probably a choice between a second doubling Spurs mid probably for this week, because you just got a limited number of spots, assuming that most people are going to have Son, Foden, and Palmer. You've only got those 2 variable spots there to play with. So for me, it will be Bruno and Gordon almost definitely. It's the defensive spots that look harder for me. I think we've got some good news on Pedro Porro training this week. I don't think we're obviously going to get the press conference tomorrow, but again, that makes if he's gets a positive update, that fills the second Spurs slot and just leaves the third one to be debated, which I'm sure we can do. I mean, Isak's got to come in, hasn't he? So you've got him on there, but despite Callum Wilson being back and potentially taking some minutes off him, I think you've got to have Isak with Sheffield United.
So they're your sort of 5 or 6 must-have Rich, and you're still debating on the edges.
I think so. Yeah, they're you've got the obvious ones that will need transfers in for me this week, because I don't own any of them currently.
Cool. Ben, what other sort of players have you been looking at? You don't have to reveal your team yet, but who have you been contemplating this week?
So it's the same. It's kind of like template for 3 in Jackson, Isak, and Haaland. Then I agree that Palmer, Foden, Fernandes, and Son are pretty template. Yeah, the Gordon one is the question mark, because if you're not getting 2 Spurs midfielders and you're planning on tripling up, then you're getting 2 Spurs defenders, or like Vicario and a Spurs and Porro. And then if you want to get 3 Chelsea players, then you're having to get the 2. You're having to get one of their defenders, and like I don't know if any of their defenders are better, are like reliable. I think I'd rather just have the safety of Petrovic in goal for Chelsea. Then that means that my Spurs players would probably be just Porro and 2 of their midfielders, and not having Gordon. But that's the big issue that I have at the minute, trying to decide between Gordon, Maddison, maybe even Ben and Johnson in that spot. I think I'll have at least 1 Newcastle defender in my wildcard team, probably coverage of Man City, and I think I'll probably go with a defender instead of Edison, probably Ruben Diaz, but it could change. And I might have Burn as well as share like 2 Newcastle defenders if I haven't got Gordon.
Interesting, yeah.
Fill that Gordon spot, yeah. That's probably a more efficient way of dealing with it, isn't it?
Russell in the chat said Gusto is out of game week 35. This is obviously just in the chat, but he also says Enzo out for the season, which is interesting, just obviously in terms of the defence in front of the defence for Chelsea. So yeah, Chelsea struggling for numbers. I wouldn't even know who I'd pick from the Chelsea defence, especially if Gusto is injured. He's probably the only, viable option, right? I think Chilwell is just on his way back, so but you're not sure if he's going to play or not, kind of week to week due to his injury issues. You don't know which of the centre backs are going to play, do you? Because they keep swapping around every week or every other week. So yes, it's incredibly tough.
That's kind of why Jackson just almost has to come in, because the squad position fits him, doesn't it? It's like you're struggling to choose a defender who you know is going to play, and there's a bit of a dearth of choice up front. So there aren't that many great options. I mean, hanging on to Mateta is not a bad idea if you don't want to go for 15 doublers.
No.
Yeah, and with the Chelsea, if you're tripling up, you want players who are reliable and you're going to start every week, because you're going to want to start them in the single game weeks. They've got West Ham at home in 36 and Bournemouth at home in 38. And those two teams, like West Ham, have been pretty terrible recently, haven't they? You'd want a reliable Chelsea, well, either goalkeeper or defender, and there isn't a reliable defender. So just sticking with Petrovic seems like the safe option.
We've got Jackson down, Rich, on your list of wildcard punts, and we've also got Watkins, Ruben Dias, and Ben White. The one in front, the chap right in the front in the middle, is quite an interesting one. You mentioned him earlier, Ben. Brennan Johnson looks to be a proper punt as well, doesn't he? What's your thoughts on him?
I think he looks good. His numbers recently have been better than Maddison. Yeah, I'm tempted to go with him. Will he start every game, even when Richarlison comes back? I think he probably will. And yeah, Maddison's been subbed off just as early as him as Johnson in recent weeks. So if you're tight for budget, then you definitely go for Johnson over Maddison. Like, I've got quite a good, healthy budget, so I can afford Maddison. But Johnson is tempting.
Johnson has been staying on most weeks. His last 6 game weeks, he's got 88, 80, 45, 89, 89, and 90. So whereas Maddison, as you say, has been coming off around the 70 to 75 minute mark in most games. It looks like he's kind of got that spot nailed. But obviously you are right. You've got Richarlison and Kulusevski in the wings as well, who hasn't been starting. It's been Werner and Johnson recently, haven't it? So yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely he's kind of archetypal punt, isn't he? He either goes off or he completely flops. But I think you should have kind of one of those, one or two of those sorts of players on wildcard, because they're the ones who will fly up the ranks, aren't they? Rich, anyone else to add on punts?
There's a few that didn't make the slide. I mean, obviously, we're really sort of thinking these are slightly more non-template players. I mean, obviously, Ollie Watkins only has a single game week, but playing at home to Chelsea, Villa are clear in 4th, going really well. He keeps on returning. He's got 35 returns this season or something. Is that right? And he doesn't take penalties. That's astonishing.
That is unbelievable.
It's really consistent. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be 10, 11 million next season. It's just a fantastic player. I mean, Ben White will only be on many free hit teams, and most free hit teams have got fires to put out. So he's still going to be something of a differential if you want to double on the Arsenal defense. It's only 4 games, but if they keep 3 clean sheets in those 4 games, then arguably he's going to do better than most double game week defenders. So I put him on there, and I like the Ruben Dias pick. I think City will knuckle down and go for the title and start grinding out the clean sheets. But Ederson, I've lots of people have owned Ederson in the past. I think you're one of them, Ben. Have been very disappointed with his returns generally, but he seems like a logical goalkeeper pick if you're not going to go for a City defender. So Ederson could come on here.
One punt that we haven't talked about yet is Kevin De Bruyne. He's played quite a few minutes recently. He played 80 against Luton, played extra time against Real Madrid, and then played 90 minutes against Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final. So he seems like he's fit. I mean, he could be rested the odd game in the double game week, though. He could just be benched. But he's kind of tempting if you've got the budget and if Haaland is ruled out.
Yeah, I agree with that. Really good shout. Looking at predicted points now for the next 4 game weeks, which is until the end of the season, so we get a really, really good picture of who the players are we want to be looking at from now until the end of the season. This is on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, predicted points. Anyone can go and have a look at these at any time. Son is top of the shop from now until the end of the season, 35.4 points, closely followed by Haaland in second place, 33.6. Palmer, unsurprisingly, 32.5. The surprise one still, I suppose, and Nicholas Jackson is up there. He's very high 30. It's obviously fixture volume, right? I don't know if you remember, Rich, about 4 weeks ago, we laughed. I think we were just laughing at Nicholas Jackson when I said, I guarantee you, Rich, in 4 weeks he's going to be in everyone's team just because of the fixture volume. In all fairness, he did. I think he got a goal assisting to Everton, didn't he? And as Ben says, going away at the Emirates is a tough old task for any team, especially forwards, right? So I don't think we can read too much into that. I think he's a good option. He's a number 9 up front. He just needs to be in the right place at the right time and just bumble the ball over the line, right? Or steal a penalty.
And hearing that Palmer's back training today, I think Chelsea, he's been literally holding the team together all season. He's the only bright light in Chelsea's performances. And if he's back, obviously in 2 double game weeks, then that clearly helps Jackson's chances as well. So yeah, totally get it with Jackson. Although he's Chelsea. I've heard it on other content today. He's Chelsea's Darwin Nunez, isn't he? That's basically what he is.
Absolutely. But even Darwin gets an odd goal every now and then.
He does. He gets returns just by sheer volume. So, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Fifth on the list, surprisingly, Ben mentioned Kevin De Bruyne is top, 30 points predicted for the rest of the season. Isaac 29.9, Salah 29. Brennan Johnson is up there as well. He's only 5.8 million, Brennan Johnson. So he's on 28 points. Maddison is close as well, 27. Foden, 26. Bruno Fernandes, 26. Gordon, 25. Garnacho, 24. He'll probably be the enabler of choice potentially for many. Saka, Eze, and then we go down the list there. Adingra, potentially an interesting one at just £5 million if you are looking at that price range as well. A double up potentially of Garnacho and Adingra will get you a couple of doublers, but it also means you could potentially afford something like like a Salah, Haaland, and De Bruyne potentially, or something, or something like that. So, but yeah, some interesting names in there. There's a few names there that haven't been, as say in many or any wildcard drafts, but the ones at the top all kind of are. Any glaring omissions or surprises there? Rich, at all?
No, not really. I think because of the expected minutes for Chelsea and Spurs players, they're obviously going to feature strongly. Where's Watkins? So he's right down the bottom, 22.3. I still think he could do. Yeah. I still think he could do really well. The one I've thought about putting on a wild card is João Pedro, as a bit of a cheap punt, but I saw that he'd only started 2 out of the last 6 games, so he's obviously a heavy rotation and minutes risk, which is why he's not on this chart. But I haven't seen the side for tonight. If he starts tonight, we could have a good look at him before the Gameweek 37.
He's only been fit for the last 3, and he's played 90, 27, 89. But we've only predicted him 72 minutes on average, which is probably why he's not on this list. But yeah, when he's fit and firing, he's.
Well, you've got a bench boost penalty taker there, haven't you, for Gameweek 37? Exactly. So he could be the occupy the cheap spot in a 3-5-2 for the next few weeks.
Okay, what we've all been waiting for. Ben Crellin's Gameweek 35 wildcard. Actually, no, I think I've actually got yours. Yours first, Rich.
I get to go first, do I?
Go first.
Why don't we swap it around?
I mean, sorry. I'll just rewind that. What we've all been waiting for. Rich Clarke. Rich Clarke. Not. Oh, bloody Rich! You've slipped in first on the slide. Rich Clarke.
All my own work. Not copied Ben at all. No. Right? So there we are. No, we'll get to see how different Ben's is from me. But you'll have to remind me. I'm waiting for the lag so it comes up on the screen in a minute.
You've got Vicario and Edison in goal to start off with.
Have I got Vicario on there?
Vicario and Edison.
That's because of what Ben was saying about the difficulty of that third Spurs position. If you don't go for the Spurs keeper, you've got to either have two Spurs defenders or that second Spurs mid. So I'm very set on the Anthony Gordon pick. So Gordon, Fernandes, Palmer, Son, Foden in midfield. That's locked for me. I'm very happy with it. Not too. The only thing I'm reconsidering is whether I haven't actually transferred Salah and Saka out of my actual FPL team yet, just because of the option of keeping them. If that is the case, but I think there's going to be some big price changes tonight. They look like they're all going to go through tonight. Son will go up, Salah will go down, etc.,
really?
etc. So I'll probably have to make moves before bedtime. In the defence at the moment, I've got Edison and Vicario. I had Gusto in there, but there's been a training update that he won't be back till West Ham, I don't think it is, which is next week. So he's got to come out, and that creates a hole to fill. So Pedro Porro, I think the update is more positive. So he's in. At the moment, I've got Fabian Schär in there as the locked Newcastle option at the back. Again, what Ben was saying, it could be that two Newcastle defenders, mainly for the bench boost, is the way to go. But that would mean taking out one of Gordon or Isak, and really I want both of those for Sheffield United, because I think that could be a huge score. And up front at the moment, I haven't got Haaland in there because of his injury. So I've got Watkins in there as a placeholder for him, Nicholas Jackson and Isak. And then on the bench, I think I've kept Harry Maguire in there. I can't ever seem to get rid of him. I don't think he'll be on.
I'm surprised you haven't got Simicast as well, Rich.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's the only one who's been in my team longer than Simicast. But look, he's actually quite near the top of the some of the data tables in terms of his actually returns. But I always seem to dodge his points. He got 12 last night, and he's third on my bench. So unless Foden's a no-show, I don't get his points. But yeah, he's in there because he's cheap, and he just needs to play in the bench boost week. I may, if money's not an issue, you could obviously become Dallo. Or Ruben Diaz if I don't go with Foden and Haaland. But I want that. I need to keep a City spot to bring Haaland back in 37 if I keep it like this. I really did this so that I didn't completely present a template team this evening. I just like the Watkins option as a bit of a kick it down the road on Haaland thing.
Good stuff, and a good team there, Rich. I'm pretty sure you'll have a cracking game week 35 with triple Spurs, triple Chelsea, triple Newcastle, Bruno home to Burnley. I mean, that is an absolute monster team. That is, the wildcarders really have got it up over the non-wildcarders.
It's good that you feel that. It doesn't quite feel like that.
Oh, it does.
It's good that you think it is.
It does. Well, you've got a spat. I'm not 100% sure how it's set for 36, 37, 38. But looking at this week, if you were doing a free hit, you'd probably have almost all these players in, I think, wouldn't you? If you think triple Chelsea, triple Spurs, triple Newcastle, Bruno, you definitely have all them to free hit this week. Yeah. So it's not just a wild card team you've got there. It's a spanking team.
Thank you,
Ben Crellin. Finally, we've got your wild card team. Do you want to talk us through your picks?
I've talked about the Chelsea players already. With Gusto being out, I don't fancy any of their defenders, so that means you have to go for Petrovic. And then if you're going for Petrovic, you can't have Vicario because you're not bench boosting this week. So I'm pairing Petrovic with Onana maybe, but I could pick anyone out of Verbruggen, or if I make some savings elsewhere, I could go for Edison instead of Onana. But at the minute, I've got Onana, just planning on playing him in the double game week and having Petrovic starting the other weeks. So the Petrovic pick and the Pedro Porro pick means that I go for the two Spurs midfielders instead of Gordon, which I'm a bit worried about. I haven't had Gordon all season, so he could really hurt me this week. But yeah, I think it's a risk that I'm willing to take based on just the security of the Spurs and Chelsea players. I've gone for Burn and Schär as my other two Newcastle players, as well as Isak, who's locked in. Then the Gabriel is the one single game week player in 37, I've gone Ruben Diaz as my Man City coverage in defence. Pretty template midfield. If you ignore Gordon missing out, I've got the main four of Palmer, Foden, Fernandes, and Son, and then Haaland, Isak, and Jackson. That's a pretty template front three.
This means,
and you're planning a save in 36, eh?
Yeah, I think you have to plan a save in 36 because of the bench boost. It's ahead of a bench boost, and you just want to make sure you can react to any kind of injuries.
Yeah.
It's quite a high risk strategy planning a transfer for 36.
as it stands, looking now at your planner, you've got 14 doublers as it stands now in 37 as well, which is looking really, really strong. And Gabriel, as you said, will you definitely hold Gabriel? With Everton at home in 38, or are you likely to move into a doubler? Do you think?
I think I'll probably hold him. Although that picture doesn't look that good, does it?
No, it doesn't. Man United away, yeah.
But
especially if the league is gone as well.
Yeah, but I think Arsenal are the one team who have things to play for. Unless they lose this week against Tottenham, they should have motivation to win.
Yeah, it should take City all the way to the last week, shouldn't they? You'd hope.
They should do. And Arsenal's defence is like streets ahead of everyone else. So they could get a clean sheet against Man United in that week. But yeah, what else? Yeah, the two Newcastle defenders are hoping they can maybe join in with a goal fest against Sheffield United. I think they did in the return fixture. It was 7-0 or 8-0. And
it was that was a week. Trippier, Botman, all the defenders were scoring returns, weren't they? That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else who didn't make the cut apart from Gordon, Ben? Anyone else who's close?
Well, it's that the Haaland injury doubt is the thing that could shake things up a bit, and they could go for Salah or Saka as well, but their recent form hasn't been that encouraging, has it? But
no.
What would you do if the prognosis on Haaland tomorrow is that he's out for Forest? Would you drop him then, or would you have him and bench him?
I haven't thought it through that much. I think I'll react to that news when it comes, but maybe I'd drop him. But like, who's the other forward that you'd go for? Would maybe I'd do what you do and have Watkins. I don't fancy João Pedro because he's the other like double game week forward that you could have instead. But I think you'd probably have to like have a way to get Haaland back in. Yeah,
it'd be interesting because I'm looking at. I think I would go for Salah. Because looking ahead to 36, Haaland's home to Wolves, which if he's back and fit, he won't have played for 2 weeks, so he may not get 90. I think they'll do well there, but Salah will be home to Spurs, which I think is a remarkable fixture these days. He'd probably be the best captain that way. Palmer's home to West Ham as well, but there's not many really obvious captaincies that week in your team anyway. I don't think. I do think that Salah at home to Spurs could be absolute carnage because Spurs just can't defend, right? But yeah, I think.
Why are we buying up to 2 defenders from Spurs then? I mean, that's what's mad.
Well, anyone who's I don't understand it. They're absolutely bloody rubbish. I don't understand why anyone who's buying them. They got Arsenal and Chelsea. Arsenal are definitely going to put at least 3 past Spurs. Chelsea will have Palmer back, and the notorious Nicholas Jackson. They're definitely going to score a couple of goals as well. The only thing with Spurs, they're away to Liverpool in 36 as well, which is an absolute garbage fixture for defenders there. The only saving grace is they're home to Burnley in 37, and then Man City, minds. And Burnley are scoring. And Sheffield United, who are rubbish, but are also scoring goals as well. I just don't see any upside for Spurs defenders. Maybe Porro, but only from attacking things anyway. That's my view. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just double. It's these doubles. They just.
If Salah's form was a little better, and they looked totally deflated last night, didn't they? Just that keeping Salah that's why I haven't sold him yet on the wild card. I'm literally waiting for the the price drop.
This is like the saving grace of not being on wild card is almost kind of I can keep Salah, but I can sell him, but I can also keep him. If I was wildcard, I'd probably get rid of him, I think. But I'm almost forced to keep him, and two good attacking fixtures coming up. West Ham and Spurs are at the moment are very, very good attacking fixtures. But yeah, we will see. We're just gonna have a look at the Hub AI wildcard team as well, which is obviously data driven and done. They've got a couple of changes to your guys' teams. Petrovic and Davradka are the keeper picks. I had heard that Pope may potentially be back soon at the end of the season. I can't really, he may start game week 38 potentially if there's nothing to play for, but I can't see him coming in very soon personally. Just coming in and play, a keeper's not the kind of player you just bring in and like off the bench, is it? So I can see Davradka being safe for a couple of weeks at least, and hopefully for the double. It's got Trent Alexander-Arnold, interestingly, Gabriel, but it's also got Ben Davis of Spurs, and this is my sort of intervention a touch. Obviously, Udogie is injured, and we were having a bit of a debate internally within the hub on who would take his place. But looking back, Ben Davis was a straight replacement for Udogie in that time when Udogie was injured. There is the potential for Emerson Royal to come and play at left back, but Ben Davis, 4.3 million, 2 double game weeks. Obviously, all the caveats I've said around Spurs being rubbish in defence, but it's probably fair to say that Ben Davis is a better defender than Udogie. So he may tighten him up a touch, but he makes the wildcard team along with Ben White. So double Arsenal defence, either they don't double the analytics are so strong in the defence, it's doubled up. And Van Heck for Brighton, who is only 4.1 million, obviously doubles in game week 37. So that's the defence. Yep. Midfield, Son, Palmer, and Bruno, unsurprising there. It does go for Salah over Haaland, and it also goes for Brennan Johnson. It predicts him to score 9.3 points in game week 35 and 10.1 in game week 37. We talked about Punt. Those are good numbers they are. So Brennan Johnson makes the cut. And then up front, Isaac and Nicholas Jackson, no surprises there. But Muniz then just makes up the 4.6 million. It looks predominantly like it's going to play 3-5-2. I suppose looking at it as well, Haaland is flagged at the moment, which is why he probably doesn't make this team. But there's obviously an easy switch over in game week 37 from Salah to Haaland if you wanted to make that move there. If you saved a transfer in 36, or could even take a hit. Yeah. But yeah, so some interesting players there. I do like looking at the Hub AI teams just because it makes you, like I say, it's
that's one of the better
objective.
ones, I have to say.
Yeah, it's decent.
It's a good one.
So yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But do we know if they're taking into account the bench boost? It hasn't got bench boost planned for 37 in that team, has it? So
it hasn't got the bench boost planned, but what it's obviously looking at is the points in that week as well. But no, it doesn't have the bench boost planned within that at the moment.
Yeah, because it wouldn't pick Muniz, would it? It wouldn't pick Brent probably.
But yeah, that is that. So we've had Rich's team and thoughts. We've had Ben's team and Ben's thoughts, and the Hub AI team. So between the three, anyone wildcarding should have a really, really good think around all the kind of advice and tips and picks there, because there's some really, really interesting stuff going on there. Looking at the captain for this week, top of predicted points for game week 35 on Fantasy Football Hub, Heung-min Son 11.5. And Jackson is actually next on 10.5. Johnson and then Palmer. I think it's probably because, again, Palmer is flagged. So because Palmer is flagged at the moment, his points reduce. So he'll probably be second or potentially even top overall. I think Palmer may have even been top overall before he was flagged. So Palmer and Son are probably the clear two.
Neck and neck, yeah.
But yeah, Ben, what's your thoughts on captain for this week?
It depends on the update on Palmer. If they say he's completely fine, I think he was ill, wasn't he?
He was ill, yeah.
So if he's made a full recovery and you can predict him to play his normal amount of minutes, then I'd probably go with Palmer. But if there are doubts over that, then I'd go with Son.
Yeah. Rich, same or?
I think I'll put it on Son for the derby, the home game. I went to funnily enough, the only game I've been to this season was the North London derby. So looking forward. That was 2-2 last time. A really good game. I think Son and Maddison both got big returns in that match, and I think with the home advantage, I think that'll be quite a close game. There's lots of goals in it, I think.
When did Arsenal last concede an away goal? Haven't they gone?
Well, I don't know. Probably then, I expect.
Yeah,
it's incredible, isn't it? And but I think they might concede on Sunday for once. So yeah, I think it'll be Sonny, just because of the guaranteed starts. I think there could still be a bit of a doubt. There is, as well as illness, there's been some rumours. I don't know how substantiated they are, that there might be some small injury to Palmer as well. So I think the pressers will be interesting. But my God, they need him back.
They do.
So. I think he's going to play.
Yeah, I think if everything's all right, Palmer for me is probably the natural choice. He's just in absolutely amazing form. Spurs, difficult fixtures. Son hasn't particularly been in form. I think he's had one attacking return in the last 4, haven't he? I was very scared. If you remember, Rich, I took him out in game week 31. I didn't want to, but I kind of had to. I feel I got away with it a touch because I think he's only had 1 assist in the last four game weeks, so hasn't been on form at all. And neither of Spurs really. As we pile into Chelsea and Spurs players, they have had 2 weeks off,
haven't they? So I just wanted to ask Ben, do you know anything about the Nick Pope situation? Because I was considering Dubravka, and it's only that game week 37. Will Pope make a late comeback?
I think he's probably due back soon. I think so. I think with goalkeepers, they can just come straight back in. Like I had Kelleher all that time, and then Allison came back and just started straight away. So if you're not going to be let back, you're not going to be eased back in with like an outfield player with 30 minutes, then 60 minutes. You're either going to start or not as a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And you want your goalkeeper to be guaranteed to start both games in the double game week. I'm not sure you can guarantee that. Like Pope could easily come back with
someone like Neto, for instance.
Yeah.
That was horrendous last night. It was like a final kick in the teeth, wasn't it, when he didn't start? And what's his name? Travers got a game. But yeah, I get what you mean.
I don't know. He's been out nearly all season, haven't he? He's been out since like September. I don't know. I can't. I read this morning that he's due back end of April. He's not in full training yet. I mean, if he's not in full training, I just can't see how he's going to play. But I'm not. I have no idea really. I'm just hypothesizing. My punt for this week, Fergie, is a punt from game week 35 to 38. He was mentioned. Ben stole my thunder a touch. He hasn't been. I haven't seen him in any drafts whatsoever, but he's pretty high in the Fantasy Football Hub points predictor. And if Haaland is out, especially, then I do fancy Kevin De Bruyne to finish the season with a flourish. Obviously, he plays this evening as part of this game week, so this won't count. But Forest, Wolves, double game week against leaky Spurs, leaky Fulham, before a final hurrah at home to leaky West Ham. Lots of leaky teams there. So I think De Bruyne with no European Cup. They do play the FA Cup the week after, so potentially he's a risk for game week 38, but I think he plays the majority. And I really like him. I think he's actually 13% owned, but that's a lot less, amongst sort of engaged managers. So he is the player that I am tipping to have a good finish to the season, and I think he can really, he has the opportunity to transform your team if you do want to stray away from the template, that is. So I'll be going for him. Just before we wrap up, quick look at my team. We're just absolute bloody shambles as we go into game week 35. I haven't got a wild card. I would have made a keeper change last week. I would have done Kaminsky to Vicario, I think. So I would have had Vicario, but as it is, I haven't. So I'm going to have to play Neto in goal. At the moment, I'm probably going to play Nori, Gabriel, and Virgil, I think. And then I've got Palmer. I'm forced in, really. I've got Salah, Saka, Garnacho, and Foden. It's actually not that bad. Haaland, Solanke, and I've got Mateta as well. So I've got a pretty decent team, but I don't think I'll probably have one double game weeker in Parma, and I've got no Newcastle, which is which is a pain, really. So
you've got 2 free transfers there,
I do, yeah. I should really have 3, but yeah, I've got 2. So my kind of, my dilemma is this smacks of a week, Rich, and I'll be getting the violin out next week, because if you look at my 11 in isolation objectively, it's a pretty good team. Garnacho home to Burnley, even Mateta away to Fulham with the form he's in is a decent fixture, but Salah away to West Ham have been awful. Saka, Spurs defensively are awful. It smacks of pain, but I really obviously want Son. I really want Isaac, and I really want Gordon. I just do not know who to take out for those players. So
why don't you sort at least one of the keepers out? Because you're still bench boosting in 37, aren't you? And Neto's might have lost his place now because Travers kept a clean sheet away to Wolves.
That's a good shout. I might bring in Vicario or Petrovic
or something. I mean that goes. You're getting 2 double game weeks for that. So the transfer is effectively free, mate. Yeah, so
I wish I'd done.
I would start fixing those doublers now.
I'll probably do that. And then with the other one, as I
say,
Virgil
to Porro maybe as well. Just get the defense. You give Gusto time to come back, and you could bench him. Maybe. Do Virgil to Porro.
Yeah.
Neto to Petrovic. And I just
don't want to go in without any doublers. Isaac or Gordon or Son. It's just asking for pain. Like Newcastle are going to batter Sheffield United like 4 or 5-0.
What do you think he should do, Ben?
The keeper one, fix the keeper. Just before, I'd say, just make sure you focus on the double game weeks.
Okay, I love it.
I'm just trying to bring up your team. What is your team at the
minute? How's it? Yeah, I won't have Isaac or Gordon. But then I'll be taken out.
Well, Solanke, what about can you afford Solanke to Isak?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Well, there you go. Then maybe get him.
If your front 7 is okay, you don't need to worry about the players you don't own. Like they've all got decent fixtures this week. Yeah. Like Solanke's projected points is 4.8. So you don't focus on the players you don't own. Just look at your weakest position in your team and upgrade that. So your weakest position might be
there's a masterful comment.
Wow, Ben, you've touched me with that comment. Wow, I'm going to put that. I'm going to frame that. Don't focus on the players you don't own. Just focus on improving your team. That's what FPL is all about, right? I love that, Ben. That is absolutely fantastic. Thank that. Honestly, it's made me feel better. That has, because you always worry, don't you? No, you do though. You always worry about the players you haven't got, and you can't have everyone
to an extent. You can't have everyone. A bit like last week.
But those who are taking out Salah surely be concerned. You want to see the lineups, and Salah's in the lineup on Saturday lunchtime. There's going to be a lot of twitchy bums come that time.
Yeah, if there's another game like Brighton, it'll be another horrendous watch, even if he has only got 1 week. One game this week.
My recommended transfers, unsurprisingly, Saka to Son and Solanke to Nicholas Jackson are the recommended transfers on Fantasy Football Hub, my team. You can get your own recommended transfers. Go to fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Free 7-day trial if you want to have a look just for the end of the season, ahead of next season. Link in the description below. And that is it for us for this week. Thank you so much for everyone who joined in the chat. A packed lobby. Thank you so much, everyone. Some really good content in there. Some loved it at the start. All the different scores and stories. They're absolutely fantastic in this crazy game week. Thanks to those who are going to watch it back and those listening on the podcast version. Your support is very, very much appreciated. Rich, thank you so much. Where can people get hold of you?
At Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter.
And if you want Rich to have a look at your team personally, or Rich or one of his gang, look at the Ultra membership on Fantasy Football Hub. Absolutely superb offer there. Ben, your final appearance, I believe, of the season this year. Thank you so much, not only for this episode, but for the 3 episodes you've been on. You've been absolutely superb as usual. And where can people find you?
At Ben Crellin on Twitter. CRELLIN is the surname. Yeah, I'll be back next year, but next year looks a bit more boring with the FA Cup changing and the quarterfinals not causing blanks.
We forgot to ask you your view on that actually, and what that might mean for you personally, and what you think it does for the game.
it might make the game a bit more boring. You could still have the wild weeks where like weird things cause blanks and you get a big like stack of double game weeks later. But yeah, not having the FA Cup causing blanks in the quarterfinals is it's pretty rubbish. I can't like form a firm conclusion on it yet because we don't know about the semi-finals.
Yeah.
That's like a 50-50 whether the semi-finals are going to cause blanks or there's going to be. Well, some years there's no free midweek after the semis.
Oh, I see.
And some weeks there is. Like some years. This year we had the free midweek after the semi-finals, but we still got the big blank. Still got the big double game week because of all the blanks from before. But if there's no quarterfinal blanks next year and there's a free midweek after the semi-finals, then it'll just be a pretty flat end to the season.
Goodness me.
Be boring.
I will be boring. I wonder if FPL will consider it and think about some kind of refresh. I mean, FPL Challenge hasn't exactly set the world alight, is it? Especially when it was what was it this week in a massive double game week? It was urging you to pick Burnley and Luton players. I mean, come on, be better.
The Premier League should employ Ben as a fixture consultant. I think would be a fantastic,
absolutely
fantastic role for you. You should be having a say on when the games actually are, mate. To be honest,
I think there's lots that goes on behind the scenes that we're not aware of, and they probably do things quite logically, and the priorities are just a bit different. Like we think they should be prioritizing the fans, but they prioritize the TV and stuff like that. And
absolutely, you know, we think that the FA and the Premier League should prioritise FPL managers, don't we? But we're quite
maximum variance, chaos, double game weeks is what we want.
Absolutely. This podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button if you haven't already. It'd be much appreciated. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It would be much appreciated. We'll be back next week to look ahead to game week 36. Just 3 game weeks left after this week. In the meantime, we hope you have a great double game week 35, and may all your arrows be green. Good night all.